In today's training, we are going to talk about one of the greatest tool in cybersecurity, that one Nmap. Okay, and today's training is basically completely focused on the complete hands-on on Nmap tool for ethical hackers. Okay, and this tool we are going to use like usually whenever we have to start any sort of a pen test or any sort of engagement, like we're usually for checking like whether the host is alive or not, or any sort of a target, like or any vulnerability we need to check on any specific target. So we usually use this tool. Okay. So this training is about that tool only, and we are going to dedicate our entire session on this tool, and we are going to check like how we can identify the online host or the active host, how we are going to identify the open ports on that, how we are going to identify the vulnerabilities on it, and we will also see different things about this tool as well. Okay, like the different features and how we can install this over different operating system and a lot of things. Okay, and before that, just kind of a quick introduction about me. Okay, I'll just quickly go through my LinkedIn. So you guys can basically connect with me. So this is me, Prashant Sharma, InfoSec trainer for this particular training. Okay, and I have overall 7+ years of experience in cybersecurity domain, and especially in offensive security. And I'm mainly specialized in VAPT and red team domain, and I can perform pen test over the different domains like we have web applications, mobile applications, APIs, network, and thick line. Apart from that, if you see the certification part, like I'm holding multiple globally recognized certifications like CREST, OSCP, CRTP, CEH, and many more. Apart from that, I have, if you see my whole profile, then you will find out that I'm in uh, this Buckrout crowdsource platform, and it is under top 800 hacker. Okay, and I've recognized by more than 50 MNCs from globe, like that includes companies like Mastercard, Google, and many more. Okay, and I've also published few of my infosec blogs over the platforms like cybersecurity medium, so that you can also check out. Okay, so this is just a quick introduction about those like who is joining this particular class completely new. Okay, I can see that few of them I've already joined previous class, that is on Wireshark. So that's just a one line of introduction to all. So if you would just want to check more about me or the credibility or authenticity of me, then you can just simply check my LinkedIn portfolio, and we can still connect as well. You can just send a request as well on this, or else like if you need more information about me, then just simply Google about a specific username called Prashantik. You will find a lot of information about me. Okay, like Twitter, Insta, Medium, some other platforms as well that I've used previously. So you can see that. Okay, and now let's come to the training part. I'll just simply close it. Yeah. So now we are going to simply start with one of the tool, that is Nmap. Before starting, I just want to quickly check like anyone is familiar with this tool? Anyone or anyone have previously used it?
Which I will I use it.
Okay, you have used it. Great. So in this call, like we have few candidates that is quite friendly with this. Okay. So let's see like what is the maximum potential of this tool and what else we can achieve. Okay, and in between, like if you have any sort of doubts, then please raise your hand in the chat as well. Okay, or else like you can drop your question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, and then we can just discuss. Okay, so because this is a quite an interactive session, okay, so we can take your doubts, okay, in the middle as well. So don't worry, like if anyone is going to judge you if you're going to ask some silly questions, so don't worry about that. Okay, so let's start. So Nmap is basically a tool that we're going to use for scanning majorly, in most of the time for ethical hacking and penetration testing. And it basically stands for something called network mapper. Okay. And it is a basically a open source tool as well. Okay. And we use mainly for network discovery. Okay, so network discovery is just one of the part of this. We can do security auditing as well. We can perform the vulnerability scanning as well by using this particular tool. Okay, so this tool can be used by ethical hackers or penetration testers or administrators as well to find some open ports, to find the services, to find out some potential vulnerabilities as well. Okay, and if we talk about a little bit history about this particular tool, then this tool is basically created by Gordon Leon. Okay, that is basically also known as Leon. Okay, and this basically tool was released in 1997. Okay, that's just a quick theory. And also remember the full form as well. Okay, like if you're preparing for any sort of MCQ based certifications, like we have a CEH security plus, or there is CREST CPS as well. So in this, basically full forms are very helpful. Okay, so they will ask a lot of full forms. Okay, so this is just a quick history. And as we know that Nmap is completely a free and open source tool that is basically licensed under GPL. That's a general public license. Okay, and this tool is basically used in cybersecurity industry mainly for mapping networks, identifying some sort of live host as well, and discover any sort of live services like FTP, SSH, and many more. Okay, so if we have a good understanding of networking concepts like OSI model and the TCP three-way handshake, or like some other protocols level knowledge like TCP UDP, then it is good to start. Okay, because that's a quite a prerequisite to get started with this particular training. Okay, and Nmap have one of the greatest feature that we call it as the NSE, that we are going to see in while today. That's the Nmap scripting engine. Okay, that's the main powerful feature of Nmap. Okay, but just because of this, we can basically automate multiple tasks. Like we can perform vulnerability scanning, we can perform service detection, we can perform network auditing, we can basically perform the protocol testing based on a specific protocol that is available. Okay, and all these scripts are basically written in something called Lua programming language. Okay, that's also one of the MCQ based questions that you will see in most of the certification exam. And Nmap have basically over more than 600 plus built-in scripts available. Okay, and that is basically stored on a specific or directory. So if I basically see like in my Windows system, it is already installed. So how can I see that? So I'll just show you where exactly it is stored. Is at the C, I think it is x86 Nmap. Here you can see, so almost 613 items are there. You can see the total item count. So these all are the script that Nmap uses by default. Okay, so as of now, I'm showcasing in Windows because Nmap is already installed in this system. But I'll also showcase you like how you can install it. Okay, on any of the system like Windows or Linux, anything. Okay, just go through the installation part, like how we can install this particular tool. So for Windows, just simply search for on Google like Nmap download and go to this. Here you can see that like your operating system. Suppose if you are using Windows operating system, then simply click on it. Otherwise, if you're using Linux or macOS, then click accordingly. So as of now, we are just using Windows, so simply click on it. And here you will see the latest stable self installer, that is Nmap 7.98. Okay, so this we are going to install, and it is already installed in my system. So what I'll do, I'll just install it in my one of the sandbox environment, that is Windows Sandbox. Windows Sandbox is basically a feature of Windows 11. So it's completely an isolated system. Like if you have to perform any sort of testing or if you have to do any sort of temporary activity, then you can do this using this. Okay, so we are going to use this to install the Nmap in this. So just a quick disclaimer, if you are using Windows Sandbox, like it is only for temporary usage. Like if you are going to close this, then whatever the thing that you've done, it is completely destroyed. So let's open this. Download Windows self-installer. It is started download. So it will take a minute to download because it's not that much heavy. It's just a 35 MB of file. And for Linux, it is already pre-installed. So I'll showcase that as well, like how you can access the Nmap in Linux environment. It's a very easy thing that you can do. Okay, it is installed. So let's just open it. Okay, so here we are going to start with installation. So I click on I agree, next, and install it. Here you can show that check the details as well, like what are the things that is happening in the middle. You can see the entire process. Wait for a minute. We can also open our virtual machine as well to check how it can be accessed over the Linux platform. Linux. Guys, don't do this any sort of annotation. Otherwise, I have to remove it. So it is getting opened up. Let's start. Kali. Okay. So here you just need to open the terminal, and if you just type the Nmap, you can see that Nmap is already installed in this. Okay, you don't have to put any extra efforts to find out the or to install Nmap. If it is not installed, or if you're facing any sort of errors while using the Nmap, then simply just update and upgrade your system by just using this command apt-get update and then apt-get upgrade. So just run it like all the misconfiguration will be resolved quickly. Okay, that's just a quick. It is already pre-installed in this. You don't have to put any effort. And in the Windows, when the installation is finished, like it's taking some time. Okay, don't know why, but I can show you like how it will looks like. So just open your command prompt, cmd, and here you can execute the nmap as well. Simply type nmap, and here you can see nmap is installed in Windows environment as well. Okay, so it is already installed. So nmap have basically two versions available. I'll highlight both of them. So Nmap have basically one of the CLI version, and second is a GUI version. CLI is basically command line version that we have already seen like over the command prompt. So this is the CLI version of Nmap. Okay, if we talk about GUI, then GUI we have something called Zenmap. So Zenmap is also installed. So when you're going to install it, it will be installed in both forms in Windows. Okay, that you can try. And if I talk about Linux, so where exactly the files are getting stored. Okay, so like how you can identify. So all of the script files are basically stored over this location. ls-l user slash share slash and map scripts. After that, we can just simply list it. So you can see that all of the scripts are listed out here. Okay, so this is the script location in Linux. Windows, we have already seen like where exactly it was. So this is the GUI version of Nmap that you can see here. Okay, and you can basically also use some grep functionality as well if you are quite familiar with Linux environment. So we have one utility in Linux called grep, and by using this, you can basically perform searching for a specific scripts in Nmap. Okay, you can utilize this particular utility as well. You can search for a specific category of a script as well, like if you are looking for safe kind of scripts. Okay, inside this user slash where you can basically do that as well. So you can see that all these scripts that have the safe entity enabled, it will be listed out here. Okay, and you can also search some sort of dependencies as well, like dependencies, dependencies. So for this, you can list out all the dependencies that is available. Okay, so that's just a quick installation and configuration guide, like how you can install and just simply check where all the scripts are installed in the operating system itself. Okay, because all these scripts are very helpful when you're going to perform the scanning. And here you can see that in the installation, in the middle, it will ask this library as well, because this library is quite very useful for performing the scanning. Okay, so we have to install this as well. Let's install it, and it will take time again. Next, finish. Okay, finish. Okay, so Nmap is installed. So how we can verify? Just simply go to command prompt. Uh, yeah, simply open it. Try Nmap. Yeah, it is there. And we can search for GUI version as well by just simply searching for Zenmap. So Zenmap is a GUI version of Nmap that we can try. You can see that it looks like this. Okay, so you can perform any sort of scan. So for our scanning purpose, we are going to take some targets. So we have one vulnerable lab available completely offline in our system that we can take. And for few examples, we will take some online labs available, like we have something called testphp.vulnerable.com, so that we can also take. Apart from this, I'll also take one secure site as well for our perform example as a testing. So let's start with the scanning part. So how this Nmap basically is perform testing. So suppose if I have a one target called BlueXploit cybersecurity.com. I simply start the scan with this. Okay, and let's analyze the result. And here you can basically choose the profile as well, like what kind of a scan you need to perform. So these scan types we are just going to check in next 5 minutes, like what is intense scan, what is intense scan plus UTP, what is scan all TCP port. This we will see. So as of now, we are just keeping as the default settings. So we are just scanning for one target, simple scan we are going to perform. So let's see like how this Nmap is performing the scan. So this is the result that we're getting. So once the scan is finished, I'll basically explain you like what exactly the result is. Meanwhile, we can check like anything is available in this. No, it is it is in the progress. Okay, it is done. I'll just quickly explain. So here you can see that the green ones. So these are the ports that is found quite open in the this specific target. So BlueXploit have all these ports open like 21, 80, 443. Apart from that, if you see that red ones like 20, 2100, 2103, 2105. So these ports found closed. Okay. And these are the services that is usually available on these particular ports. Okay. Here you can see the one more thing that like on this FTP, like what is the version of FTP that is running on? So thus the service version is Pro FTPD or KN that is running on. And for this 80 port number, Light Speed HTTPD service is running on. Okay, so you can basically check. Apart from that, MySQL port is also opened up on this particular target. So you can see that 3306 is showcasing MySQL, and they have the version called MariaDB 11.8.3. Okay. So that's how basically you can identify like how many ports are open up on the target. So why we are doing this particular port scanning? Because if you have to hack any target or if you have to basically compromise any sort of a target by using any attack, then you need to find out the entry points first. Okay. And these basically ports are the entry point. Okay. Like suppose if you found out like 21 or 25 or port number like 80 is open up. Okay, so these are the basically antiport, and in this there can be chances that any service is running up. So and that service can be vulnerable as well. So what if that service is vulnerable? We can search for any exploits over there over the Google, and after that we can perform the exploit. And after performing the exploitation, we can take the initial access of the target and we can compromise it completely. So that's a kind of a very straightforward approach that we usually take. And like if you're performing or if you're compromising any target in CTFs or in labs, so that's a very straightforward process that we usually take. So here you can see that like we have these many ports open. So what will be our usually process? So we can basically do some Googling about this process if we don't have any idea. Like suppose I'm a quite beginner about the port scanning or this cyber security field, like how this scanning work, then what I can do, I can simply search like what does the 21 port holds, like what is the information that it holds, what kind of service it runs for. So I will get to know that it will start for FTP, sorry, port 21. So here you will see. So here you can see that port 21 is a standard TCP port used by FTP protocol. Now we don't have any idea about FTP. Then what we can do, we can simply open a new link, and here we can see that a little bit information about this particular service. So FTP. So just open it up, then you will see a complete block. So what does this FTP protocol do? It is responsible for file transferring. So if we have to transfer any files or if we have to upload or download any files, then this service we are going to use. Okay. So we get to know that, okay, this is the service that is running on port number 21. Now, what we can also search, we can search for any specific version that we get to know that. So suppose we get to know that it is using Pro FTPD. What if like any sort of version is there like 1.3.1 something? We can search for any exploit available for that. So we can search that, okay, we got to know that this exploit is available. SQL injection is also available over there. So we can open up some links like that and we can perform our research accordingly. Okay. But that's a further on part, like how we can process after identifying all the stuff. Yeah, here you can see a little bit information is given on this particular vulnerability, like what exactly the description of it, and what is the author, how you can exploit the vulnerability using Metasploit tool. So that you can see. Okay, so this is the process. Like if we have some information about the port that is opened up. Okay, so that's a quite straightforward process. Now let's deep dive into the process, like how Nmap basically uh, works in background. Okay, like what kind of scan it uses, what kind of different flags that we have available, what kind of scan techniques it supports, and how it basically analyzes like whether the port is open or whether the port is closed. Okay, so that thing we need to understand. So Nmap basically uses three main techniques to identify the host discovery. Host discovery basically means like whether the target is online or not. Okay, target is up or down, or you can say kind of online or offline. Okay, first technique would be the ARP scan. scan basically, like suppose if you're in a local network and if you have to basically check like the connected system, like how many systems are online, if it is in your local or subnet or specific. So what you can do, you can perform the ARP scan as well from the Nmap, and by doing this, you can identify the live systems in your local subnet. So that's the first technique that we can see. After that, the second technique that it uses is the ICMP scan. And in this, basically, it sends some ICMP request to the host, and it will analyze the response accordingly, and it will say like port this host is alive or not. After that, the third technique it uses is a TCP UDP ping scan. Okay, so in this, basically, it sends some packets to TCP ports or UDP ports to determine whether the host is live or not. Okay, so these are the three main things that it uses. Now let's see like how this ARP or ICMP or these three techniques usually works. So if I'll basically draw a quick diagram to showcase you like how they are able to analyze
Prashant,
whether that.
can you, just explain about ICMP once again?
Yeah, sure. So in ICMP, basically, it sends two sort of requests: echo request. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and if it basically receives the output like from the server like echo reply, then it basically determines that whether the host is alive or not. Okay, so these are the basically techniques that we're using for checking whether the host is alive or not. So it is sending ICMP request. If it receive some responses, then it can conclude that it is alive. Otherwise, it is offline or it is down. These are.
Got it. Got
I'll just explain it with a diagram as well, all these three. So don't worry. I'll just quickly draw a diagram to explain all these techniques again and again. So firstly, let's go with the ARP, like how it basically analyzes whether the thing is alive or not. So for this, we'll draw one diagram. So suppose this is our system. Uh, what we say, like a machine. And after that, we have something called victim or a server. Target machine. Okay. So from our server, from our attacker machine, what we will do, we will basically send one request. Okay. That basically contains the ARP request. Okay. If the server responds with that ARP reply, then we can conclude that it is a open or it is alive host. That's the first thing, first technique. Okay. So how we can perform it? So in the Nmap itself, we have a one flag available that we call it a -PR. Okay. So if we are using -PR, then it is what we are doing. We are doing a ARP scanning to determine whether the host is alive or not. Okay. That's the first thing that we are doing. Suppose if this we are not in a local subnet or there is any specific scenario, then what we can do? We can go for one more technique called ICMP scan. In this, what exactly happening is, again, I'll draw the same diagram again, but this time it is for the ICMP. We have again attacker. And one more thing is that like if you're preparing for any sort of ethical hacking interviews or penetration testing interviews, or for freshers, they will ask you like the background concept, like how these flags are working. Okay, they will not ask, they will not majorly focus on the like how this flag works or something. They will mainly interested in identifying like how you will get to know that like when which flag or which scan techniques you need to use in which scenario. Okay, because you should have a background concept like what exactly is happening behind the specific technique, like how the tool is able to analyze whether the port is open or not, whether the host is alive or not. Okay, so that's the main thing, like important for interviews, so that you can focus on. So this again server, our victim we have. Okay, again will send some request, receive the response as well. Okay, and this I'll just simply. So here in the ICMP, what is the name? Yeah, ICMP scan. What they will do? Firstly, as an attacker, we are going to send the ICMP echo request. Okay. If in the response we are receiving any sort of ICMP echo reply, then we can conclude that the host is alive. ICMP echo reply. So in the first scenario, host is alive. The second scenario as well, host is alive. Now there is one more scenario where most of the time, like if they are implemented any sort of firewalls, okay, or any sort of stateless or stateful firewall, they will basically block your ICMP echo request. Then in that case, what you can do, you can use ICMP timestamp request as well. ICMP timestamp request. Yep. So in this, what we are going to send, we are going to send the ICMP timestamp request. Okay. And in this response, we will receive the ICMP timestamp reply. If we are receiving the reply, then we can conclude that, okay, the host is alive. Okay. And for each technique, the flags are quite different. Like for this, the flag would be nmap-pp. And for this, the normal scan that we're doing, it's nmap-pe. And after that, obviously the target IP, whatever the IP that we have, IP. Okay. We will do the practical as well, like how we can do the all these sort of scans. But firstly, we will get to know that like what kind of scanning techniques exist. Okay, because that is very important to understand before performing the actual live practical of that. Okay. And ICMP address mask you can also perform using the same technique. Okay. For that, the flag would be nmap-pm. Then this is basically something called ICMP address mask request. And if you're receiving something called ICMP address mask reply, that means host is alive. So these are the main methods that you can see. Apart from that, the last technique that Nmap uses to check whether a host is alive or not, that is TCP. TCP is SYN ping. So in this, what exactly the happening is, again, I'll just draw a quick diagram. So this technique basically we use mainly for checking whether the port is open or not most of the time. Okay. So this technique basically works on a three-way handshake, TCP three-way handshake. Okay. So in the first type, it will basically send something called SYN packet. And after that, if the server is going to respond with something called SYN or acknowledgement packet, SYN/acknowledgement. Okay. And after that, one more request is going to go to the server, that is acknowledgement packet. Okay. And if this communication is happening, then we can conclude that the port is open. What if like it's not happening? Okay. Again, I'll just draw one more diagram to showcase you like how this works. This time, suppose there is no SYNAC and they're basically responding with something called reset. They're basically sending something called reset. So in this, you can see that in the first, what exactly is happening, it is basically checking whether the host is uh, have some ports open or not, because we are able to perform the TCP three-way handshake. Okay. Apart from that, if you are sending the the reset packet here, okay, suppose instead of acknowledgement, you are sending the reset packet, still you are able to recognize whether the host is open, have some sort of open ports or not. Okay, that's the one thing that you can do. And if you see one more TCP scan, no, not a TCP, that's a UDP scan. For that, again, the same thing. Instead of SYN, you are sending some UDP packets and it will reply. If it is replying, then you can say that like it is have some port unreachable or something, ICMP type 3 code. So if you are getting this particular response, then you can conclude that like that port is closed. Okay. If you're just simply sending it, you are not receiving any sort of response, then you can see that like this particular port is quite open. Okay. Because here we are using the UDP protocol to check whether the host is online or not. So this is the one of the fundamental scans that you can do. So let's do a quick scan to identify like whether the host is alive or not. Okay. So how we can do that? So for that, we are just simply going to use Nmap. And after that Nmap, we can specify any sort of flag, like if we have to perform SYN scan. And I'll give a target called tryhackme.com. It will take a minute. We can increase the speed as well of all the scans that we'll see in next few minutes, like how we can increase the speed. Like if it is taking too much time, or if you have a very limited time available for all the projects, like suppose you have one project where you have to perform the penetration testing for 600 IPs and you have only 1 week or 2 weeks of time. It's a very limitation time. In that case, how you can do the scanning in bulk, how you can basically effectively utilize Nmap to perform the scanning and exploitation as well. Okay. So here you can see that firstly, there is one line called host is up. That means host is alive. And here we have basically done the port scanning as well. You can see that how many ports are available. Port number 80 is available, 443, 8080, and 8443. Okay. And here you can see the state as well. Open, 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 open. Let's do one more scan for our BlueXploit. Let's see. So this we are doing using the CLI version of Nmap. Okay, we have used Nmap GUI, but personally, I won't prefer using this GUI version because we cannot automate few of the tasks. So for that, what we can do, we can use the CLI version, and by using this, we can automate few tasks. Like we can supply the output to other tool. Okay, like by just using the grep or some other command operators. So that would be helpful. Cybersecurity.com. Let's see the result. Okay. So here you can see that we have open ports available. These many ports are open up for this particular host. Host is up. Great. Now, uh, this is not the only state that Nmap basically shows. So we have multiple states are available. Port states. So if I talk about like how many port state, like open we have something we have closed. After that filtered, we have unfiltered, filtered, and we have open, filtered, we have closed, filtered. Okay, so these are the port state that is available. Now I'll basically mention in like what is exactly the meaning of this. Firstly, the open simply means that port is active, okay, and that particular service is running. So like any example would be HTTP. Just in one example. So that service is running up. Close simply means that particular port is reachable, okay, and that the host is alive. Like maybe there is a chance that that particular host is using any sort of a firewall or any other security solutions to basically mention that port is unreachable. So if the port is unreachable or is not responding to you or is responding with a reset packet, in that case you can mention that the particular port is closed or it is not running any sort of services, or maybe that is protected by any firewall. So these are the two or three conclusions that you can get. Filtered simply means like that particular port is blocked by a firewall. Simple. Okay, because you will not receive any responses. Unfiltered basically simply means like that particular tool Nmap is able to reach the port, but it cannot determine the state, like whether it is open, whether it is closed or filter, because tool is not capable enough to identify whether that port is closed or not. Okay, so for that, what we need to do, we need to perform some additional scans, okay, to determine whether the port is closed or not. After that, we have something called open filtered and open closed. So again, this basically simply means like Nmap is not able to decide whether the port is open or filtered or close or filter. Okay, these are the simply meaning of these. Okay. Now, if you see like in background how this Nmap is determining whether the port is open or not. Okay. So if I'll basically draw one diagram to showcase like port is determining target or user A, user B. Now I'll basically showcase you like how this tool is basically determining the state. So for open state, what exactly it is going to say? It is basically going to send some SYN. After that, it will send something called SYN plus ACK. And if it is receiving the SYN plus ACK, that means port is open. So these are the flags that Nmap will receive. Now, if I'll basically talk about the close, so this is for the open. It will basically send the SYN first. And in the response, if this particular target or user A will receive something called acknowledgement plus reset packet, then we can conclude that this port is closed. Reset packet plus acknowledgement. This is the close condition. Okay. Now after that, like filtered. Filtered simply means like we are sending the request SYN and we are not receiving any sort of a response, or there is any firewall is there, and that firewall basically have some sort of packet filter mechanism implemented, or our packets are getting dropped. So again, we are sending, but still we are not receiving any responses. So we are sending again and again. So we cannot identify whether the result of our packet is properly reaching out to the specific user or not. Okay, so that's the filtered condition. Okay. After that, if we talk about the unfiltered condition, so in that unfiltered condition, like we are sending the SYN packet. Okay, and in the response, like we are receiving some, you can say any sort of error response or any incorrect way we are receiving. So we are not able to determine whether the port is unfiltered or not. Okay, so that's unfiltered. And similarly for that open filtered and closed filter, what exactly it is happening? We are sending some requests, and again, like we are receiving a response in such a manner that we are not able to determine whether the port is open or closed, or open, close, or filtered, something like that. Okay. These are the ones. And if you have an idea about all these flags, so I'll basically mention the flags like urge, acknowledgement, push, reset, sin, pin. Okay, so these are the main flags. Okay, that Nmap basically uses in different scan types. Okay, and every flag have basically a meaning. So if you have the idea about these, then it will be very easy to understand the different scan types because Nmap supports a lot of different scan types. So if I'll basically showcase you, this is the scan techniques we have like TCP sync, acknowledgement, window scan, Memon scans, and these are the some uh, other different scan types like null scan, pin scan, xmas scan. Okay, so because inside these scans they have a technique like they are using different combination of flags to identify whether the port is closed or not. So if I just quickly demonstrate you like the meaning of all these. So if you see that urgent simply means like it is indicated that particular packet or data is quite urgent to be delivered. Okay. Acknowledgement basically simply means like whatever the request we have sent, we are basically indicating a acknowledgement against that. Okay. So it's kind of a acknowledgement to the receipt of TCP segment. Push basically simply means we are asking the TCP to pass the data application promptly, or basically we are mentioning that it is quite very uh, urgent to send. Okay, so like usually we use the push for video streamings most of the time, or some sort of other scenarios that basically require some voice calling. So push is for that. Reset basically mention that like resetting the connection. Sin we use for initiating the connections. Pin basically for finishing the connection, or basically mentioning that sender has no more data to send, so finish the connection, something like that. Okay. So now let's simply go to the Nmap tool, and now we will simply start with the other techniques or other flags that is quite important for us as an ethical hacker, or as a penetration tester, how we can utilize them in a daily use case. So let's simply start with, I'll start with some basic techniques, then we'll move to the advanced ones. Okay. So firstly, I'll just open up a one virtual machine, and we can close this environment because our installation is done. Okay, close it. Kali. Okay, Kaliness is not there. So we'll use this vulnerable VM to perform some scanning. In between, if anyone have any questions, then we can just discuss on it, or else I'll continue. Okay, so we have this IP called 192.168.11.128. Just take it. 192.168. Okay, so this is our target. So all kind of scanning we are going to perform on this. So let's do a simple basic scan. So let's see the output. Ports seems down, but why? Ping 160.11.128. Let's see from Linux as well. 160.11.128. Yeah, maybe it is not in that network. No issue. We'll do the all the scans from Linux only. So Nmap 192.168.11.128. We'll just start with a simple basic scan first, and let's analyze the output. So here you can see that. So this is the output, and here you can analyze host is up, and we have these many ports available, and this is the service that is running up. Okay, great. We have this many information. Now, suppose we have to dig deeper into that. Like we want to check the available service version as well. Okay, we have the services, but we don't know like what is the version that is running up. So what we can do, we can start with some flag called -sv that is specifically for service version detection, or we can say kind of a banner grabbing. So let's simply do this, and it is going to take a little time as compared to the normal scan, because here it is going to identify the banners, or it is going to identify the service versions as well. So if you see the output, if you compare here, only service is mentioned, and here the service version is also mentioned. So if you see that FTP service have this particular version as VS FTPD 2.3.4, SH have this 4.7 P1, Telnet have this. Okay, this 53 DNS have this. You can say MySQL have this particular version. So all the services that have the versions, it is available here. Okay. Now, what else we can do? Suppose we have to identify the operating system of the target's machine. Then what we can do? We can simply go for -o. Let's see the output. So here you can see the OS detail. So it is basically running on a Linux kernel. And here the OS detail is Linux 2.6.9 to 2.6.33. So that's the OS discovery that we have done as of now. And there is one more scan available called aggressive scan. And by using that, you can perform the OS discovery, you can perform the service enumeration, you can perform the trace route, you can perform the script scanning as well. Script scanning basically, suppose you can see that there is a lot of services are running up. Okay, and for each service, Nmap have one feature called script scan. So by using that, you can perform some specific scans for a specific services. Like for there are some different checks available for FTP, like brute forcing, checking for bounce attack, or checking for other attacks. So you can basically do it by just simply specifying a flag called script hyphen FTP. So we can basically automate all these by just giving a -a flag, aggressive scan that basically includes a lot of things like OS discovery, service enumeration, trace route, and the script scan. So we'll just simply do this and let's wait for a minute to complete it. It will take a minute. We can just increase the verbosity as well. Verbosity, we increase it for getting more detailed output. So by just clicking on V, you can see that verbosity increased to 1, verbosity increased to 2. You can increase up to 6. And here you can see that the output we have received. Scroll up. Okay, so we have this. So here you can see that firstly, this port is open up. There's a version we got from the -a flag. Okay, we have not specified anything else. So this particular -a flag basically used some script called FTP anonymous. They have checked like whether the FTP anonymous is allowed or not. After that, basically check FTP server status, like whether we are able to connect. Okay, and any sort of files available in this, and something for SH. This is a file, a script scan that is done. This for 2025. Scroll down a bit. We'll see the dedicated script scan is done for all the services. Okay, even for MySQL, we can see that some information available. Okay, so we can see that how much information we have got by just specifying a single flag. But -a is basically an aggressive scan. Aggressive scan means like it is going to create a lot of noise in the environment. So if there is a scenario where you have to be stealthy or you have to be undetectable, in that case, you cannot use the aggressive scan because it is going to create a lot of noise. It is going to send a lot of requests to the server and it is going to raise some alarms as well. Okay, but if there is a staging environment you are testing or any sort of environment that you are testing, whether there is no requirement of being stealthy, then you can use it. There is no issue with that. Okay, and one more thing is that whenever you are doing any sort of scans on any projects like that you are getting in the corporate, so save all the outputs. Okay, so basically Nmap have a one flags available for saving the outputs, so you can check using -h. Then scroll up. Here you can see that. So all these are the scanning output flags. So -on basically simply stands for normal file output. Okay, -ox is basically for getting the output in XML file. -os is basically a script kiddie format that usually we don't recommend. -og is basically for the greppable format. Okay, and there is one more flag available called -oa. Okay, so this will give you the output in all three major formats like XML, grep, and the normal one. Okay, so usually I personally use this -oa flag whenever I'm performing any scan. So suppose if I'm performing aggressive scan, so then I'm going to store the data as well of that. So how I'm going to do that? -on, and I'll use this aggressive scan.txt. So all my command, the output will be stored in a one txt file called aggressive scan.txt. So let's save it and wait for a minute. Okay. So let's get aggressive scan.txt. So here you can see that we can see the complete output of that particular file. Okay, this is very helpful, like where you are performing any internal testing or any sort of a testing where you are getting a machine access, and after that you need to analyze the results in your own machine. Then what you can do? You can perform the scanning. Okay, and save all the outputs, and you can basically transfer the all outputs to your own machine, and then it will be very helpful. Like we are analyzing all the results locally, so that would be helpful at that time. Okay, because that machine access would be revoked in like some time, like after 1 week or something. And what if like after 1 week there is some sort of escalation? Then if you have any sort of scan results available in your machine, then you can mention that like this is the scenario, that's how it was done. Okay, or usually like in an organization there is a process like you have to save all your project related data to a specific folder. So when you're done with the project, you have to save all these results like scan outputs, project files, all the screenshots, POCs, everything. Okay, that's a usual process. Okay, so document everything like whatever the scans that you're doing. So even in future, like if any client comes up, like they will do some allegations like you have done basically some sort of misconfiguration, or you have basically you are responsible for this damage. So you can mention that like I have not done it. Okay, you can showcase all the scan outputs or something, like what was the thing that is being done. Okay, or you can help the forensic team as well, like so they can investigate properly. Okay, so always document all the scan outputs, whatever you are taking. Okay. So now let's move to some other flags that is available in the Nmap. So OS discovery we have seen, aggressive scan we have seen. Now suppose we have to perform a specific port scan. Like suppose I just want to check like whether port 80 is open or not. Then how I can do that? I can just simply use a one flag called -p. After that, I can specify the port number. So you can see that only port 80 scan was done. Now suppose there is a scenario where I need to perform the specific range like from port 80 to 120. Then I can do something like this. And here it will only check for this. Only two ports are open. Okay. And as 39 is closed. And suppose there is a one scenario where you need to perform the full port scan. Full port scan simply means you are going to scan all the 65,535 ports. Then how you can do that? By just simply doing this. It is going to take time. And it is a mandatory scan that you should do every time whenever you are doing any sort of network pen testing or something. Because here you will see some additional ports will be you will find out. Why you will find some additional ports? Because Nmap by default, if you're running any sort of normal scan, it will only check for common 1,000 ports. But if you're doing -p hyphen, it will check for all 65,535 ports, whether they are available or not. Okay. And by default, it is only scans for the default 1,000 common ports. Okay. So that's the one thing that you should know. Like for scanning the entire ports range, you can go for -p hyphen. Now, let's do one more scan. Like suppose there is a scenario where you need to perform the TCP scan. Then how you can do that? By just specifying ST. That's it. So it will basically only scan for TCP scan. But what if you need to perform the UDP scan? Then -SU. So it will scan for all the UDP ports. So there are some scenarios like if you're preparing for any CTFs or OSCP certification or solving any labs over the Hack the Box or Try Hack Me somewhere. So you will find that there are services that is not exploitable over the TCP, but it is exploitable over UDP. Okay, like or any port is available over 160 port or 161 where you can perform some exploitation, or any services running over the UDP port that you can exploit further. So that you can try. Let's wait for a minute. UDBs can generally takes a lot of time, so I need to cancel it. Otherwise, it will take a lot of time. Uh, I'll show one more thing. Like there is one more dedicated flag called -reason. This flag is quite a very useful flag. Like whether you are curious enough to know like what kind of things Nmap is basically considering, like for reasoning and conclusions, then you can use this reason, and you will see some reasons behind that. Like suppose if I'm performing SV-A scan, let's see. You will see more detailed output. Okay. So Nmap will basically give you more details about its reasoning and conclusion. That's it by just using this. You will see a little bit details are added up and output is lengthier as compared to the previous one. So that's the main use case of reason. Apart from that, like suppose if you have to perform a scan for a specific subnet, then you can basically specify the subnet by just using this .1.1 something slash your subnet, like 8 or 24, whatever it is. You can also specify the IP range as well. Like suppose you have to scan the .1 from .8. It will scan all the 7 IPs, like 192.168.1.1.2.3.4.5.6.7.8. Like this you can do. Or else like suppose if you have to scan multiple IPs or multiple specific IPs, like you can imagine IPs like this, 1.5. So it will perform the scan on these two IPs. But suppose there is a scenario where you need to perform the scan on 500 IPs, then how you are going to do that? So for that, we have one dedicated flag called -IL. And after that, we have to basically select the list of IPs. So we can select iplist.txt. So for that, let's just create a one dummy file. Like I'll just put some random IP addresses: 168.11.128, 192.168.11.129. We'll just create a list, dummy list, okay, to check whether it's accepting the data or not. Control S. We'll just set about this IP list.txt. Saved. Now we will use this IP list. It's not there stressed. So here Nmap is basically taking the output on this from this IP list.txt file. Okay, and it is performing the scanning based on that. Nmap done 4 IP addresses, 2 hosts are up only. And that's the output of that. Only 128 have this output. Whereas there is no output on that any of the hosts. And 130 is also open, but all the 1000 ports are closed. And for other 2 is not up, so that's why you are not getting any output from it. So that's the bulk scanning. That's how you can perform the bulk scanning. Even like it is useful at the time of bug bounty as well, where like you have a lot of domains available or a lot of IPs is available. Now you have to perform specific scans, not related to port or not related to anything. Like a vulnerability scan you need to perform, or you need to perform some script scan. Then just select all the IPs or domains and put it into the Word file, and or not Word file, it's just a text file, and just pass it to Nmap and see like how an Nmap is basically performing a scan. So it would be very helpful at that time. So that's a IP list.txt. So that's how you can perform the bulk scanning. Okay. Now Nmap also basically supports one more thing called scan timings. So if you see Nmap-H, then they have mentioned about that as well. Timing and preferences. Okay. So they have basically -T05 something. Okay. And they have basically minimum parallelism. So basically concurrent request. Okay. Maximum retries. So I'll basically explain you this, what exactly it means. So majorly I'll start with T0. T0 basically simply stands for paranoid. That's basically too slow. Okay. So, but usually like if there is any IDS is implemented, so IDS is basically as kind of a security solutions, stands for intrusion detection system. If it is implemented, then in that case, this kind of a scan is quite useful. Okay. So, but the speed will be very slow. Okay. T1, basically we call it a sneaky. Then again, it is useful for IDS case only. T2 is basically quite polite, a little faster than T1. Okay. T3 is basically the normal and default scan. So Nmap basically runs on a normal scan. T4, little bit fast, or you can say kind of aggressive as well. T5, insane. So in this, you will see more false positives and less accuracy, or you can say lower accuracy. So here you will see more false positive. So I suggest like if you have a lot of IPs, then go for T4, not for T5, because in T4 there is a very less false positives. Okay. So if you have more than 500 IPs to scan, then simply go for T4. In that way, it is going to be done with a very fast rate as compared to the T3. Apart from that, you can basically use scan delay as well. Hyphen scan delay flag. So this flag basically what it will do, it will basically send a specific packet with a delay. So suppose if you are mentioning the delay with 1 second, so what it will do, it will basically send the packet with a 1 second of delay. And we can also basically specify the host timeout as well. Like there is a flag host timeout. Suppose 500 ms. So this is useful basically when there is a service that is not responding and it is taking a lot of time. So what we can do, we can basically specify our scan timing limit. Okay, after this, just leave it. Okay, that's the timing. After that, there is one more called hyphen min rate. After that, we can basically give any sort of number like 10, 20, so anything. Okay, so this basically we use to control the packet rate. Okay, why we are using this? To basically ensuring that our scanner or our tool is not sending more than specific packets, like 10 packets or 20 packets. This will be helpful at the time of firewall evasion. Okay, because you are not going to send much packet. You are basically not going to create a lot of noise in the environment. Okay, you are just sending very low amount of packets to the network itself. Okay, so this is the one thing that you can try. After that, Nmap also supports the IP version 6 scanning. So by using this -6 flag, you can perform the IPv6. Suppose if the target is giving the IPv6, then you can just use it. -A, we have already seen like this is the feature of -A, like it perform the OS discovery, version detection, script scanning, trace route. And suppose you have to basically scan the target with some default script. Then what you can do, you can basically use a flag called -sc. So it is going to perform the default script scan against all the available services. We can also perform the IP geolocation who is using Nmap as well. So that I'll also showcase. And we can also perform MAC spoofing, IP spoofing. So that we will see in just next few minutes. Let's wait for this to complete. 97 done. Next time we will use -T4 to done it very fast. Okay, it is done. So here you can see that all the scripts are run. You can see all the scripts are running against all the available protocols. Suppose there is a scenario like where you only have to run a specific protocol script. Okay, then how you can do that? Then I'll just use a flag called -FN script and just mention FTP star. So in that case, we are going to use all the FTP scripts available in the Nmap to run against a FTP protocol. So let's see the result. So here you can see that firstly it is using a one script called FTP bounce. Okay, it is checking for FTP bounce attack, and after that it will go for other scripts as well, and we'll see the output. Let's wait for it. We can increase the verbosity as well. Also, one more just quick tip, like if you are running Nmap, then always run with root privileges or as an admin, because there are few scans that will not be supported for a unprivileged user. Okay, so only privileged user or a root user or an admin can run few scans. So always run Nmap using the root or as an admin. Since it is stuck, we need to run it again. I'll just use -T4 this time, or I'll also mention the port as well, -P21. It will be a little faster this time because we are using timing for T4, and we are only performing the script scan on a specific protocol. Previously, we haven't given any specific protocol. We are just giving that run this FTP script for all the ports. Okay, for all. So, but here we are specifying that only run for port number 21. Or else we can just use one more terminal parallelly. We can also split the terminals if you want. Just like this, you can split. We can run it, or you can also use the split terminal feature of Linux. As of now, I'm not using it. I'll just collapse. Okay, so again, we'll start with Nmap. Let's see. Okay, it is taking time. No issue. We'll start with MAC spoofing, like how we can perform the MAC spoofing. So for this, we'll start with a spoof MAC address. So -FN spoof -MAC. Okay. After that, we can basically give the vendor name as well, like what kind of vendor we are looking for MAC spoofing. Like we need the MAC spoofed MAC from Asus. And then we can give the IP address of the target machine, like 192.168.1.128 something. This is the IP address. Let's see, 11.128. Correct. Let's perform the spoof. So here you can see that it is using the this particular MAC for scanning. There's the Asus Network Technologies. Okay, host seems down. Maybe host is not responding to us. It should work now. It is 34% done. Okay. So there's a spoof. Like if you have to basically perform a scan using some other specific MAC address, then you can do that. Suppose if you have to generate some random MAC addresses, then you can go for the 0. Okay, it will basically take any random MAC address to perform the scan. Apart from that, like if there is a scenario where you have to basically assign some prefix of any MAC, then you can basically use like this. So Nmap basically generate a one spoof MAC address with this particular prefix 0011. So that's a MAC spoofing. Apart from that, like suppose you have to basically perform the decoy scan. Then decoy scan simply means like you are going to use random IP addresses for scanning, and in that your IP address will also be there. So the target machine will not be able to analyze like what is the attacker machine IP. So I'll give you one example for this. So suppose we have one attacker machine. and we have the target machine. So there is a scenario like where you are sending a lot of requests to this target machine, okay, from different IP addresses. And in this random IP address, your IP address will also be there, your attacker. And so you, suppose you are basically sending the request from 10 IPs sources, okay, and out of 10, one IP is yours, okay. So this will basically very helpful when there are solutions like IDS and IPS are implemented and they are trying to detect the IP source, okay. In that case, they will not be able to detect it very easily because you're using some random IP addresses, okay, for performing the scanning. So how you can do that? You can basically use a flag called -d and random. Suppose you have to generate something called 10 IP addresses, okay. After that, our target. So you can basically do like this. So here you can see that we got a result, but on the target, basically the scan was done from 10 different IP addresses. Okay, so this is the result that you have got from IP spoofing. Apart from that, you can basically also perform a whois scan as well using Nmap. So for that, we have one script available, hyphen script, whois dash IP. After that, again hyphen script, hyphen args arguments, whois dot odb to no cache. See about the google.com this time. Let's see about our domain, BlueXploit cybersecurity.com. Let's wait for a minute. So in this case, we are going to basically perform the normal whois from Nmap. If 47% done, okay, we can perform the scan. We can perform some different scans. So in the meanwhile, let's give the time for this to complete, and we'll see some other types of scan that is available. So apart from this, like we can perform some top port scan as well. So suppose there is a scenario where you only have to perform the port scanning for top 20 ports, then how you can do that? You can basically perform it using hyphen top hyphen ports, and you can basically specify like 20 ports you want to perform or anything. So it will only perform the scan for on the 20 ports that is available. After that, suppose there is a scenario where you need to basically check for vulnerabilities, then how you can do that? Just use hyphen script equals to vul. In this case, you are going to perform the vulnerability scanning using the Nmap. Let's wait for a minute. I don't know why we are getting the weird output every time. Hyphen T4. Well, let's use it for google.com. It's not displaying because I think this particular domain is have some privacy protection. Maybe, I'm not sure. Let's check for google.com. So meanwhile, we can see some other stuff, okay, like what kind of scan types that is available in the Nmap. So let's start with something called null scan, but very important for interviews as well. So just to give it a focus on it. Our target machine. So firstly, we'll start with something called null. And before that, let's just simply copy paste null scan. So this is the scan that is available in Nmap. So if you just do the quick help, okay, nmap -h scan types, you can see that we have this -sn because this is for TCP null scan. So these are the scan techniques that we're going to check now. And now let's check the output. So here you can see that this is the whois output for that particular domain called google.com. Okay, so like what is the country? So their country is US, organization name is Google LLC, organization name is this, net range is this, whois IP range is this. So a little bit information about the organization you can see there. Okay, similarly you can do for the geolocation as well if you want. So and I have that particular feature. So now let's focus on the script scan type, like what kind of different scan types that we usually use for firewall evasion. So scan type, the first that we're checking is null scan. So in the null scan, what exactly happening is we are sending the null. Null simply means we are not sending any sort of flags. Null basically simply means there is no flag sets. Okay, all 6 flag bits are set to 0. Okay, and if we are basically sending it, we are not receiving any response. That means TCP port is open. But in the response, if we are receiving any sort of reset or acknowledgement packet, that means that particular port is closed. So that's basically a null scan that basically indicates like whether the port is open or closed. Okay. So null scan, fin scan, xmas scan. So these kind of scans we usually use if there is any security solutions are implemented like firewall or something. So in that case, we are basically sending some custom packets to identify the response, and accordingly we are going to confirm whether the port is open or not. Okay. So this is the null scan where we are sending the null packets. Now let's come to the fin scan. So again, attacker, target machine, and this time we are going to set a fin flag. So if we are sending the fin flag, there is no response. That means port is open. If we are sending fin flag and application is responding with something called reset or acknowledgement, that means that particular port is closed. Okay, that's for the fin flag. Fin scan. Fin we are sending, and this for open connection. For close, should receive something called res or reset or acknowledgement. After that, we have one more scenario for Xmas scan. In Xmas scan, we are basically sending three flags simultaneously. So three flags simply means we are sending something called fin, we are sending push, we are sending urgent. Okay. If we are sending, we are not receiving any sort of response, then means it is an open port. And if we are receiving some responses like reset or acknowledgement, that means that particular port is closed. Okay. And flags are quite different for using or performing these sort of scans. So suppose if I have to perform the Xmas scan, then how I'm going to do that? Just to specify something called -sx and the target. So target we have 1 plus 128. So these are only helpful when you have any firewall implementer. So you can see that open filtered we are getting because they are using a different flag mechanism. Okay, we are not able to determine. Let's try some other, like we have SF pin scan output open filter for this. After that, was the null scan. Okay, so you can see that generally like you will see that kind of output. Okay, where the Nmap is not able to determine whether the port is open or not. Okay, accordingly. After that, we have one more called custom scan. Custom scan basically like suppose there is a scenario where you have to experiment with some sort of a combination of flags. Okay, like you have to basically check like how the server is going to respond. Okay, then in that case you can basically create your own combination. Own combination, like you can basically use something called -hyphen scan flags, and you can basically mention the sequence. Like suppose you have to send the reset flag first. After that, you have to basically send fin flag. After that, you have to send some sin flags. And now you have to basically check like what's the response. Okay, so that's how you can develop your own custom scans using Nmap for different ports. But for that, you should have an idea like what kind of scenarios will be there. Okay, so that's a custom scan that you usually get. After that, we have something called Windows scan. Windows in Windows scan, we have one flag called -sw that we use, and in this, like we usually expect a reset acknowledgement. Okay, so suppose we are sending something. Again, we have attacker and we have one target machine, and after this, suppose attacker is sending a acknowledgement packet and reset. So basis on the response, if the tool is going to analyze whether the target port is open or closed. Okay, but usually like you will receive something called RST. Okay, so in the Windows scan, you will use like this. After that, there is one more, but that we generally don't use. That's called Memon scan. Okay, but you should have an idea like what exactly the Memon scan is. So this particular scan is introduced in something called 1996. Okay, and in this basically it is going to send something called fin or acknowledgement to the target, and in the response it will receive something called reset packet. So this is like this, and response it will receive the reset packet. Again, I'll just attacker. So this usually works like that. Okay. After that, we have one more scan technique called fragmented scan. Fragmented basically, you can say like we are going to divide our packets into 8 bytes or less than that. Okay, for performing the firewall evasion. Okay, so we are basically divide our data into multiple chunks or multiple fragments. So it will be evaded by the firewall. Okay, so we can basically do that by just using the hyphen f or hyphen ff. We can divide our data. If you see the nmap hyphen h, we have a lot of flags available, a lot of scan techniques are available. So like we have, is it really necessary to learn all these, or like there are very few techniques that we need to focus on. Okay, if you see very clearly that there are only you can say kind of a 10 to 20 flags that you're going to use on daily basis. Okay, not more than that. Apart from said that, if you see in an nmap we have a lot of flags available, but majorly there is not that much common scenarios for most of them. There's a very rare scenario for rest of them. And for interview, like what kind of flags are important. So for that, I'll just quickly mention like what kind of flags that you need to focus on. Okay, so first it would be this hyphen il. So like if there is a scenario for checking the bulk scan or performing the bulk scan, then you can use this. Okay. After that, you have to basically focus on hyphen sn. So suppose there is a scenario where you just need to check the host availability, like host is available or not, and you don't have to perform the port scan. Then you can perform the hyphen sn. Ping scan is also good, like where you are going to consider host as a online and you are going to perform the port scanning. After that, TCP SYN is okay. Rest you can basically leave. Apart from that, SU is important. All these are important, like TCP null scan, PIN, XMA scan for interviews, and port range hyphen P is important. Hyphen F is not important much. Top ports are important, like for scanning specific top ports. SB is important, giving specifying the verbosity. Script scan like hyphen SC flag, and what's the language that it is being used for writing the script. So Lua is the language. Apart from this, OS detection flag, timing scan, and these retries, host delay, host timeout, scan delays, mix minimum rate, maximum rate. You can also specify the value as well. So hyphen F for fragment scan, decoy, like sending the IP address, spoof IP address. Hyphen S for spoof source, spoof IP address. Like if you have source IP address, otherwise you can use random output. You can also learn verbosity, reasoning also one. What else? IP version 6 you can also try. And hyphen V for verbosity. Yeah, so basically these are the main scan techniques that is available, and you have to basically use on daily basis and quite helpful for interviews as well. Okay, if you're preparing for freshers or experience as well, like if you're basically opting for any sort of network pen testing interview rules, then these are going to be helpful for you. Okay. So we have seen a lot of things. Let's just quickly see some other stuff, and then we can basically wind up. Nmap hyphen h. I think we have seen the practicals for most of it, like performing the range scan, list scan. Yeah. So I think we are almost done with all the mm, scan techniques and the flags, like what we have to use on daily basis. Okay. You can basically check the history as well. So these are the main flags that we've used in this particular terminal. And these are here. So a few of them, like timing scan, specific port scan, port range. Okay. So this we have done. UDP scan, TCP scan, port range, specific port, aggressive scan, OS discovery, version detection, where exactly the location is also important for the interview, like where exactly the scripts are stored in Windows and Linux, so that you can also try. Okay, so I think this is it for the Nmap tool. Okay, if anyone have any other questions or something, then we can go ahead, or else like we can wind up the call, because these are the main scan techniques that exist. Again, that I personally use. Okay, there's a dedicated cheat sheets are also available for learning more about the Nmap that you can also try. So session X have their own cheat sheet. If you can just go through the images, you will see more. Or else like just simply open image in new tab. And so also have given their cheat sheet. So a lot of companies have given their Nmap cheat sheets that you can utilize as per your scenarios. Or else I basically share it over the group or attach in the description video that you can download the cheat sheet. So there, zoom we need to do. As of now, it's a quite blur, but we can just go to the source website and we can download it. So you can see the scan techniques are mentioned, target, normal basic scans, some brief summary, port specifications are there. So if you just go to this particular website, you will see a full HD image, and here again same things. We need to visit the entire website to check it. So you can see just the search cheat sheet. So this you can refer. Like example, scanning a specific IP range, domain, CIDR, subnet, bulk scanning, 100 random hosts, excluding IPs, STSU, SA, SW, SM that we have just seen. You can see that all of these are available, like performing the ARP scan, port specification. Yeah, almost we've done most of it. So these are the cheat sheet that is available. It's very handy in at the time of interview. Okay, if you need any customized cheat sheet, then you can let me know over the group, or you can just directly message me if you need some customized one, or else you can just refer the publicly available cheat sheets over the internet. Okay, that's also a good one to consider. If anyone have any questions, so we are open for that, or else like we can just simply close the call. So do anyone have any questions on Nmap tool? Because that's a very quite basic tool that anyone should have an idea if you are preparing for ethical hacking or penetration testing. Okay, because this is the first tool that we usually use for scanning, like for identifying whether the host is alive or how many ports are open up. So what is the entry point, how we are going to exploit it. Okay, because this tool basically holds a lot of capability, and this tool have a integration with Metasploit as well. Like we can use Nmap with Metasploit, and Nmap is not the only tool that we use for scanning. There are some other tools are also available that we can try. Okay, like we have a Nabu, we have a Rust scan that we can try. Okay, that you can also explore. I'll just mention the names: Rust scan and the Nabu. So this one is from the project discovery, and Rust scan is from this. And Rust scan basically uses Nmap internally, but it is completely written on the this Rust language. Okay. Whereas this is the Nabu, quite a very fast port scanner. So like if you are in bug bounties, then maybe you are familiar with this Nabu. You can use that as well. So that is it, everyone. Anyone have any questions or something? Okay. If not, then thank you for joining in, everyone. We'll connect on next training session that is for Metasploit. Okay. So for the timing, thank you again. We'll catch up on the next class. Bye.